Now, I know I got about a dozen questions that came up, and I really want to answer all the questions that we have. So um, I want to try and cover some of this overview, though, because I think it'll be helpful when we kind of dig into the topic at hand here. So the next piece, I'm a psychotherapist by trade, and I pay attention to the academic realms, and I lecture on college campuses and often to the psychology program or the human sexuality upper division classes. And what I recognize from being in those places is that our students who are now going through the institutional channels to come out on the other side as licensed clinical social workers and family and marriage counselors, the people who will be dealing with people who are coming to them of, wow, I've been watching a lot of porn, or I don't know what this means, I'm attracted to this, and what am I doing, and oh, my partner's been sneaking, or, these therapists, the ones who are licensed, insurance allows them to take, clients and get paid, are not taught anything about sexuality. There's no curriculum in undergrad psychology for sure, and I think barely even in grad psychology that deals much more with sexual discomfort, vaginismus and erectile dysfunction, or psychological disorders. That's what the view from the academic realm is, because this is outdated and inadequate to take care of the people who are coming to the fore. So when I do speak to a group who are in that professional thing, I just really encourage them to keep an open mind, and because they're getting kind of funneled down to this institutional track of how things are viewed and how things are looked at, and kind of can wind up in a place where they don't have an understanding of how to really, hold space for someone coming to them with a serious issue for themselves, versus, well, here's a pharmaceutical you can take, and here's some avoidance behavior that we'll try and establish for you. So part of my mission is to help move along the academic world to bring it up to where it's going to be more helpful. And this is from working with my clients, a disorder that I've defined myself. And it's shocking that it's not in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is what the APA, American Psychiatry Association, uses to identify disorders, what they call psychological disorders, which has grown from 1952, when the first one came out, from like it had 110 to the last one at, I think last year, the 5th edition, now it has something like 360. So our psychological health has deteriorated like by a factor of 3, so just in 50 years, by following this model of looking at everything as and diagnosing only disorders versus, wow, what's your truth? What are you turned on by? What drives your passion and such, Or looking at them instead of, and this is, where this framework was also the framework that pathologized homosexuality in lesbian people up until 1972, when it was removed as a psychological disorder. It was something wrong with you, that something happened to you that we need to fix now. And this is the same thing that's been happening with people who are, as I call them, fetish sexuals. People who have a desire for an alternative form of sexuality that isn't in the mainstream mode has automatically been, well, it must be a disorder. It's not how I do things, so you must be messed up by the view of the therapist. There's a great quote from Alfred Kinsey, one of the early sex pioneer researchers, when he was being interviewed by a reporter or something at a time in the 50s where nymphomania was the hysteria of the day. Women having a lot of sex or wanting a lot of sex, that was like panic, going through the culture, because this is a psychological disorder. And the reporter asked, so Dr. Kinsey, how do you identify someone as a nymphomaniac. And he says, well, a therapist will just view as someone who's having more sex than they are, and those therefore are a nymphomaniac. So thank you, Dr. Kinsey, for your insight. So this situation that I deal with over and over with clients really who come to me and is they are afraid of others knowing about what their sexual truth is or expressing that sexual truth. So I call it sexual authenticity disorder. And it's really the most common thing that I see out there is most, people are afraid of anyone knowing. Not everybody, but I mean the majority, I'd say, of the culture is still in that framework where I don't talk about it, or mostly because, again, it's embarrassing. It's shame. We're afraid of being shamed, or afraid of being ostracized, or harmed, for speaking up and stepping into our truth. So this is really what a lot of, I think, the future of therapy is going to be, is helping people become support them and encouraging them to be who they are in terms of their sexual desire, and helping them to untangle all that's gotten intertwined with their authentic expression that holds them back, that clenches in their throat, they can't speak. I mean, these are physical manifestations of this fear. And that's part of the work that I do with people is at the body level. There's a lot of energy stuck in the body when we are holding things down. It's muscular, to not speak, to not be able to say what I want to say. We're literally being choked. It's a physical expression. So in order to get to these places where we can take ourselves into our authentic expression, we got to up the game. Each individual person needs to up their game of how they pursue their desire. And that's what, again, we're way behind the curve on, and why we're so clumsy, if not invasive, in our sexual expressions with each other. Because we have not come to terms with how to be in integrity with what our truth is and how to express that in an authentic, honest, mature adult way. So this is an important message, I feel, because this is where a lot of things are going sideways in terms of what the views are on campuses and across the culture of consent violations and negotiations gone bad, and outright, or not having any negotiation at all, and stepping into something and thinking, oh, we're going on this path, or when the other person thinks they're not, or perceived as such, etc. So it's really a personal responsibility that I want to encourage everyone to step into, is take care of your own business. It isn't about pushing out, there's a lot of inquisition and witch hunts, and a lot of energies go on in that. And I think what's important is, as mature adults, that we step up and take responsibility for our own actions, our own decisions, our own choices, and communicating clearly what we want and what we don't want, and signaling that. That's going to solve probably 90, well, I can't put a number on it, but I believe that's a very important part of the conversation now, and personal responsibility to take your own, being an adult means, you're responsible for your choices and your decisions. And that's a place that I hope that we can get to down the path.